If you look around the free agent market, there are still some big-time free agents like Pete Alonso, like Alex Bregman, Anthony Santander, just to name a few. And do you think the Washington Nationals could potentially be in on any of them?
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals. For all your latest Nationals news and notes, make sure to check us out over on X. And a little bit later on in today's program, we'll be discussing plenty of things Washington Nationals. So make sure to stay tuned because later on, Juan Soto did not speak to the Nationals media, but Josh Bell did, and he spoke about Juan Soto's contract. And he had a little bit of a story that he dropped from back in 2022 when the Nationals made that mega offer to Juan Soto, who would have been the highest paid player in all of baseball at that point, and it might tug on some heartstrings if you're a Nationals fan. I'll have that discussion for you a little bit later on. In the second segment, can the Nationals contend in the NL East, not just this year, but over the next 5 years? It is 2025, and the Nationals, they are sort of at the end of this rebuild. They should be competing, hopefully this season, if not, definitely in 2026. Can they compete, though, in the NL East? We'll have that discussion for you, and why maybe a little bit more tricky than what you think. But today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. And from big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed win or lose. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we get started discussing today's top free agents. And I've got a list of them. We mentioned a few of them, but just to go over the four main guys that are left in free agency: Alex Bregman, Anthony Santander, Pete Alonso, and Jack Flaherty. Now, four of these guys, or really three of them, should be making some real deal money here: Alex Bregman, Anthony Santander, and Pete Alonso. Those three guys, you could have made the case a few months ago why the Nationals would have been on them, but I don't really know where we stand today. But I want to go by each and every one of them. And let's start out with Alex Bregman. Alex Bregman, one of the premier free agents in this class, one of the bigger names in all of baseball, someone who is a perennial winner with the Houston Astros. The Nationals will not be in on Alex Bregman. And why? Because he costs a little bit too much money. But also, let's discuss this part of it. People, for whatever reason, this offseason here in D.C., they have been clamoring for Alex Bregman. And when I mean clamoring, people have been saying that they are going to sign Alex Bregman, you're going to go all in, and that's it. You're just going to sign Alex Bregman because he's a good baseball player, and which is true. Alex Bregman is a good baseball player. But at what cost? The fact of the matter is this: Alex Bregman's numbers have fallen off over the last few seasons. Now, if you were to tell me the Nationals would have signed Alex Bregman, I would have said, cool, I'm all on board for it. Because again, there is no salary cap in Major League Baseball. And number two, Alex Bregman is a good baseball player. But also, are we going to ignore the fact that his best years are behind him? Alex Bregman is good. But again, I would not really want to go that route at this point, especially for what the amount of money that's going to take to sign Alex Bregman. There are rumors of him getting over $200 million. And again, Alex Bregman is a good baseball player. But his MVP years, where back in 2019, he was just the best and the hottest hitter on the planet that season. That's beyond him. Alex Bregman, post-pandemic, has not been the same player. And you could also say post another scandal there. He's good, but the Nationals, quote unquote, missing out on him is not the end of the world, in my opinion. Now we get into some trickier waters, though. Anthony Santander. The Nationals will not be on Anthony Santander, but they should, in my opinion. I think this is the perfect example of someone who has been given the right opportunity to play in Baltimore, to number one, overall just develop as a player, which he has done over the last few seasons, and now hits free agency. This isn't something where he is having a career year right before free agency. Anthony Santander is a very good baseball player. And if you look at his numbers, he has gotten better and better each season. That is the kind of trajectory that I would like to see if the Nationals, big if, by the way, if the Nationals were to go after one of these stars. You kind of have to follow that trajectory here. And I think he fits that category for what you want. He is going to be peaking hopefully within the next few seasons. If not, it wasn't this last year, but you understand the point. He has gotten better. He has improved. And while he is aging, he is still a very good baseball player who, when he is given opportunities, he does a lot with it. And the Orioles are not the Orioles without Santander this last year. You hear all about the stars that they have. Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Jackson Holliday, Grayson Rodriguez, all the young stars that they have in their system and on the major league team, you hear about them. You didn't really hear too much about Santander. And by the way, they signed his replacement, which is Tyler O'Neill. There is going to be a difference. In my opinion, their offense will be a lot worse without Santander. And so, for a team that should hopefully sign him, if it were the Nationals, they would get a lot better. And ditto, of course they would. This is someone who's going to provide power. This is someone who would be a good clubhouse leader. And there would just be overall great things to come from a signing like him. And again, I think you'd get the most bang for his buck as far as these top free agents go. Because he's not that big star name that you see like Pete Alonso, who's up in New York, or Alex Bregman, who's won multiple World Series titles with the Houston Astros and has been in MVP talks for years and years and years. He's not that kind of guy. He's not going to be selling jerseys out the you-know-what at the Nats team store. But this is a very good baseball player. Overall, the Nationals will not be on him at this point in free agency, but they should have been. And I wish they would have gone in on Anthony Santander. Third, Pete Alonso. The Nationals will not be in on Pete Alonso. But here's the thing. They should have been. Now, I just talked about how we watch trajectory and see kind of where these guys are meant to break out. Well, Pete Alonso actually had a down year, considering the few seasons he had before this. Pete Alonso's power was a tick down. His numbers overall were just down for what we're really used to seeing here. And also, he's a defensive liability. But the things that you can't chart on an analytical chart here: leadership. Pete Alonso is a great leader. Number two, his health. He is always healthy, regardless of the situation. And number three, something you can look at a chart for, is he provides power. We're going to get into this a little bit later on, but Josh Bell, he was asked by the Nationals about, why should you sign here and why did you? Why did you choose to be back? Well, he said himself, they need help in the slugging department when talking about the Nats, and I help in that category. Josh Bell knows, and the Washington Nationals know, that they need power, and Pete Alonso would be the guy to provide that. Now, he is good. You would overpay for him because, again, to sign him away from the Mets or whoever else could be in an Alonso at this point, we'd be talking about a pretty big payday. And I don't really think the Nationals would want to go up to that department just to land Pete Alonso, someone who's not all that good defensively, but he will provide an answer for your power problem. And he also will provide an answer for who's going to be your clubhouse leader when you're missing Patrick Corbin. Trevor Williams in that conversation. He's now back in D.C. But overall, there's really not that many young leaders in this building here that you can really kind of account for. We used to talk about C.J. Abrams, but the end of last season, I think that told us the story of really kind of what was happening there. And overall, I think Pete Alonso would have been a great signing for this organization. Last but not least, Jack Flaherty. Could the Nats still be in on Jack Flaherty? I think they could be. Now, do I expect them to sign Jack Flaherty? I do not. I don't think it's going to be a money issue, but if you look at the rotation right now, you have Mackenzie Gore, Jake Irvin, Trevor Williams, Michael Soroka. You have, DJ Hurst, Mitchell Parker, Cade Cavalli coming back, Josiah Gray. This is a pretty, I won't say loaded rotation, but it is a crowded rotation right now. It's solid. The Nationals starting rotation was pretty good, and they had some bright spots in 2024. But still, I would like to see them make improvements. And we all know this. Pitching is everything in the postseason. You're really going to only go as far as your pitching goes in October. So if the Nationals did decide to sign Jack Flaherty, and let's say it bumps DJ Hurst from the rotation, so be it. Jack Flaherty is a proven starter at this point who just had a bounce-back season and helped the Dodgers win a World Series. Now, I don't know what the Dodgers will do. Will they go after Jack Flaherty himself? Who knows at this point? But he is still out there on the open market, and if the Nationals do decide to kick those tires on him, I would absolutely be all in for it, even if it means blocking one of the younger guys, like a Travis Sakura, for just this season. That's fine for me. The Nationals should be in the department of making this team better. And Jack Flaherty not only makes his team better, but more specifically, it makes the rotation better. And it also is a bigger guy who is going to help this organization in more than just one way. Be a clubhouse leader. We just talked about it with Pete Alonso. You need that. And so, if the Nationals do decide to go that route, I'd be all in on it. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Next, let's talk about this. Are you a little worried about the NL East? If you look around, it is pretty crowded. And when I mean crowded, I mean you have Steve Cohen, who does not care about money. He's going to spend on anything and everyone. Number two, the Phillies. They're pretty good. The Braves. They're also pretty good. You've got three teams that are ahead of you who have been rebuilding and retooling and restocking, and all three of those teams are pretty well-run organizations sitting here today. Are you worried about the Nationals contending with those teams moving forward? We'll have that discussion for you after I tell you about our friends at Gametime. And I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert just last year because the energy and excitement was just unforgettable. Now Gametime's made it easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature fills out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And recently, as you know, the Commanders are in the playoffs. I was just looking for tickets just for fun to check out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Washington Commanders down in Tampa for Sunday Night Football. And I found some amazing deals, and I even saw some great seat views because you can see that on Gametime. It's one of their unbeatable features that they've got. And of course, they have got the best prices out there on the market. And there's all-in pricing, shows the total cost upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. Now we get back into it, discussing the state of the NL East, and I'm here to tell you, I'll be the first one to say it. I'm a little worried about the Nationals contending to try to win a National League East title with where we sit today. Things will have to happen in order for you to knock off the Braves, the Phillies, and then someday down the road, the New York Mets. This is a very loaded division right now. Forget about the Marlins real quick, because the Marlins, in my opinion, even though I do think they're in pretty good hands with Peter Bendix as their president of baseball ops, I think he's a good analytical guy who will run that organization in a pretty good way, but I think it's going to be a lot of time before they get back to the top. But now focusing in on the Mets, the Braves, and the Phillies. Now, I think the Phillies are, if you were to ask me which of those three teams would fall off first, I would say the Phillies. And the reason why that is they have a decent farm system overall. They've got a few guys that you want to look out for. But overall, their core of guys are getting a little older. Bryce Harper, it's insane to say that, but he's getting up there in age. Trey Turner, he's getting up there in age as well. And of course, Castellanos, Alec Bohm, he's going to be a pending free agent after this year, I believe. There are a lot of key pieces that will be kind of, number one, aging, or number two, leaving in the open market next season. And I don't really think that the Phillies will be that hard to kind of topple down because, again, I think Dombrowski is a really solid GM, but they're making moves to try to win now. And they're going to be gutting their farm system. And if you don't win a World Series in the next 2 seasons, then, in my opinion, I think their window has been gone. But then I look at the Braves. The Braves, in my opinion, one of, if not the best organization in all of baseball, possibly behind the Dodgers. I think the Braves are really good. They have been injury bitten for the last few seasons with Ronald Acuna, but still, if you get a healthy Acuna and you get the rest of that lineup healthy, they find ways. Like, think of it this last year. They trade for Chris Sale. Everyone's talking about how Chris Sale is done and overrated. Well, he wins the Cy Young with them. They find ways in order to, number one, compete, and number two, turn guys' careers around. That, in my opinion, probably scares me the most, is that the Braves, because, again, they've got all these guys locked up basically through 2030 with Austin Riley, Ronald Acuna, Ozzie Albies. They've got Spencer Strider in there as well. I mean, they have got a loaded team, and they produce pitching like no one else in their system. And they've got a few guys coming up who will be helping them. They're another team that is very tough to knock off. Third, but not least, by certainty, you have the New York Mets. Steve Cohen. This is one of those things where I've always said you have to build and develop your own prospects to win consistently in today's game. Well, the New York Mets, while they haven't been the best at doing that over the last few years, they are going to get a lot better. David Stearns, their president of baseball ops, coming over from Milwaukee. He is the number one guy I look at and say, he's a dangerous guy because he got the job done and stayed competitive in a small market like Milwaukee for a team that does not spend money. They were handcuffed with a Christian Yelich contract that quickly got old with them. And he still found ways to develop prospects and put out contending teams and make smart, savvy moves. That is another kind of cherry on top of why the New York Mets are so dangerous. Number one, you've got Steve Cohen, who does not care about the money. He will spend on Juan Soto. He will get up to an $800 million deal to sign Soto. And when the next big free agent comes out, the Mets will be rumored for him. And by the way, the Mets, they could even come away with Alex Bregman or Pete Alonso in this whole thing. You never know with Steve Cohen. One thing is for sure is you cannot count them out. This is a dangerous organization. And overall, those three teams, it makes for a dangerous division for this Nationals team. And that is why I'm slightly concerned about this rebuild with the Nationals. It just feels as if that everything is coming together at the wrong time with those three teams ready to compete, ready to play, had veteran players. And I think that is why maybe why the Nationals kind of look around the division and say, you know what? Is it really worth spending on a top free agent to get Anthony Santander in the door here? I don't know. But I think that has to do with something here. That has to be at the table where Mike Rizzo is conversing with his staff there, saying, are we sure we're ready to compete? And it's not because of where these young guys are like Dylan Cruz and James Wood, but look around us. Look at these teams and how good they are and how they are ready to compete now. Are we sure about having 4 teams in the playoffs from this division? Because let's be honest, the Mets, the Braves, And the Phillies, they should certainly be in the playoffs this year. There is certainly no excuse for the Braves and the Phillies and the Mets for that matter. 3 teams that have high payrolls, 3 teams that develop prospects, and 3 teams that had the team and had the goods to win a World Series. I think at this point, when I kind of look around at the Nats, I just say, spend. Buy this free agent. Do whatever you can. Get better. And the Nationals have gotten better. But also, if you were to sign a Pete Alonso, would that really put you over the hump and make you better than those 3 teams? I don't think it would. I think there's a lot of room to grow. And also, you kind of have to wait for the king to get dethroned. And the king are those 3 teams over the last few years here. So it's some food for thought, but I think it's a little bit more complicated than where we put it. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen. Next, let me tell you about what Josh Bell said about Juan Soto. And I'll just tell you this. If you're an emotional Nats fan, you will not want to hear this. I'll tell you about that. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And from big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL is simply better with FanDuel. And because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets. Win or lose, FanDuel app gives you everything you need from live bets to same game parlays and so much more. Visit the website and share betting lines around your team or league. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That is FanDuel.com. And if you look at the Bucks and the Commanders this weekend, I've got the Commanders right now at +3.5. I think they cover it. I'm not sure if they win yet, but we'll see. I know Jaden Daniels will score a touchdown because he is Jaden Daniels. He is the best rookie on the planet, and I'm going to bet with our guys, the Commanders. So make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Let me tell you guys about what Josh Bell said about Juan Soto's contract. Let me just read this whole thing real quick. Quote, "That was nuts when talking about Juan Soto's contract. I was there when the Nats were trying to sign him. He talked to me during the whole thing, and obviously we have the same agent. I mean, it's not double what the Nats offered, but man, even then, I was like, dude, if I were in those shoes, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, dude. I'm probably going to sign that. I'm probably going to sign for way less. I don't know." That is what Josh Bell said to Juan Soto when the Nationals offered him that massive deal back in 2022 that would have made him the highest paid player in baseball at that time. What if Juan Soto listened to Josh Bell there? What if? Now, it has worked out for Juan Soto, and it was the correct decision not to. And I said the same thing then, and I'll say the same thing now. He made the right decision betting on himself. Scott Boras made the right gamble by saying, you are absolutely not going to sign this extension, and if you do, this is bad. And rolling the dice paid off for Juan Soto. He hit the jackpot. He hit everything that you could have wanted. He is going to get probably $800 million by the end of this deal. None of it being deferred, by the way. But still, the fact of the matter is this. Number one, the fact that Juan Soto is discussing that with Josh Bell at that time makes you think that he was seriously considering staying here in D.C. That's the part that makes it a little bit sad. Is that he was kicking the tires on a veteran player who has been around the league, who has been guided by Scott Boras as well, like Josh Bell. And he is talking about this and being like, hey, man, should I sign this deal? And Josh Bell goes, yeah, if I were you, I'd sign the richest contract in Major League history. Luckily for Juan Soto, he did not take his advice, and he went to free agency, and he got nearly $800 million. And Juan Soto is the story of sports this offseason. And that's it. But Juan Soto, it makes you think he was seriously considering staying here with the Nationals. Think about that for a second. Even when the Nationals were the worst team in baseball, but still, what the Nationals did that offseason was the right move. You had to move off from him. You knew that you weren't going to re-sign him. You knew that you weren't going to extend him. You knew that if you were to extend him, you'd be handcuffed forever and ever and ever because, let's be frank, I'm not trusting the Nationals to develop prospects. In that rebuild, we'd still be one of, if not the worst teams in all of baseball this season and next season and the year after that. And you'd be in this rebuild forever and ever and ever. And I don't know if I'm patient enough for that. So I do think the Nationals made the correct decision, but still, Juan Soto, you think, was considering being a Washington National for life. It was fun to think about, but now he's in the Queens with the New York Mets, and that'll never feel good to say. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.